Good day, everyone. This is Teacher Aldrin, and I will be your teacher in English. So, for today, we will be learning about modal verbs expressing permission, obligation, and prohibition. I know for sure that some of you has the knowledge or the prior knowledge, should I say, about the modal verbs. And for those who are not aware of modal verbs, we'll get to know it further later. But before we move on to our lesson this morning, let us first have our attendance. So what you're going to do is that you are going to type your complete name in the comment section of your attendance in our FB group with your picture while working with your task or while working or watching this video presentation for me to recognize that you are really watching our or attending our class for today. So, all right, in order for us to be guided with our session for today, or should I say lesson, okay, we're going to focus on different kinds of models. So this also deals with the different grammatical forms of models that we use in expressing permission, obligation, and prohibition. You are also expected to identify the models used in an article, but will not focus more on that. But of course, we'll be dealing more on differentiating the different kinds of models being used in expressing permission, obligation, and prohibition. And lastly, you're going to create dialogue using models. If I am not mistaken, on the last learning task that you are going to work with is that you're going to make your own comic strip. Okay, it's a conversation, it's a dialogue wherein you're going to make use of the modal verbs from your dialogues. And lastly, you're going to convert nonlinear to linear information. All right. So this time, let us know what modals mean. Okay. It says here that these are auxiliary or helping verbs. They may be used in expressing permission, obligation, and prohibition. But what do we mean, sir, by auxiliary? So when we say auxiliary, it is actually synonymous to the word helping verbs because auxiliary is helps our main verbs, okay? And it's also called as the helping verbs. But when do we use our auxiliary or helping verbs? So if the action happened in the past or it is happening in the present or will happen in the future. So what are the examples of models? So later I will be telling you the different models that we can make use in writing a sentence expressing permission, obligation, and prohibition. But let us first define the following terms before we go along with our lesson. So this will help us understand what models are all about and how are we going to make use of the following models in different situations of our lives. All right, so the words that we're going to define are as follows. We have permission, prohibition, and obligation. I know that you have something in mind, and if you have your own definition of what these words are for you, let me know in the comment section for you to be recognized. So your comment or your answer or your thoughts about the terms that you're going to define in the comment section will be considered as your recitation. All right, so let me know your thought about the definition of the following terms that you are seeing on your screen. So now let us first define permission. So when we say permission, okay, from the root word permit, okay, it means It is an act of giving consent or authorization to someone. What does it mean? It means you are letting other people, might as well, it's your friend or your siblings, okay, to do something on your behalf or whatever it is. So you are giving them the right to do things on your end. So that's what permission is all about. You are giving consent or you are authorizing someone else. All right. So that's what permission is all about. What about prohibition this time? So it says here, okay, so prohibition means it comes from the word prohibit. Okay, when your parents are not letting you to go out because there's a threat of a coronavirus. All right, so you are being prohibited, okay, to go out. It means they're not allowing you, or should I say, they are preventing you from getting sick. That's why they're not allowing you to go out. Okay, so let us now move on to its definition. So it says here, prohibition is the act of disallowing or preventing someone from performing or doing something. All right, that's what prohibition is all about. Let's say, for example, you are not being allowed to have your boyfriend as of this moment because you're still young and you have to focus on your studies. Then, since you are prohibited by your parents, since you are not allowed, you have to abide with the rules because they're the ones, they're you are under their care as of this moment, and you cannot still carry on yourself by yourself alone. So you really have to follow them. All right. That's why we have to follow the wisdom of our dear parents, because they have experienced everything about life. So whatever they say, we have to follow them in order for us to have a better life in the future. All right. So next is obligation. Okay. So for sure, I know for sure that this is quite familiar to everyone. When we say obligation, it is more likely synonymous to the word responsibility or accountability. Okay, and it says here that obligation, it expresses commitment or duty to something else. Just like us being a Filipino, okay, there are rules and regulations, there are policies in our country that we need to follow. There are laws that bound us. All right. Whenever we walk along the road, there are road signs that we need to follow in order for us to be safe and to not cause problem with other people. That's why there are rules or laws that we need to follow as a Filipino citizen. Also at home, we also have our rules and regulations that we need to follow. If there is curfew being implemented at home, then we really have to follow. It's for our safety as a child. All right. And in school, there are also rules and regulations that we need to follow. And it is our obligation. Okay. It is our obligation to follow those rules and regulations and policies that bound us as an individual. All right. So I have an example. Should I say examples here that I would like you to read. So as you can see very clearly that there are words in red being underlined. And I know for sure that you have already thought that these are examples of models. But this time I want you to identify by yourself if the word for each sentence expresses permission, prohibition, or obligation. And we'll find out later your answer in the comment section. All right. So number one, I believe I can fly. So that is a song. Are you familiar with that song? I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. All right. So I'm not a good singer though. Okay. So that is our first example. So the model being underlined on the first sentence is can. So later we will find out what does it express in our sentence. Later we will also find out how important for us to know the uses of the following models for each uses. Okay, so next is Angel must call the police after the incident. All right, so the word being underlined here is must. It feels like you are being obligated to call the police for the incident that had happened or that has happened in your barangay, let's say for example, or in your community. So number three, Janine has to prepare for her exam. Okay, it feels like you have this kind of feeling that you're being asked to prepare for your exams. Why you were being asked to prepare for it? Perhaps in order, of course, in order for you to pass. And you have that kind of feeling that you're being obligated to review all the lessons that you have discussed in the previous days or months, all right, in order for you to pass. All right, and number four, Bernadette doesn't have to secure a permit for her to go out for her house. All right, so later we will find out the following models or where the following models belong to. All right, so please bear with the noise that you hear on my end as of this moment, and let us focus with the lesson. All right, so let us start with permission. So like what I have said a while ago, that permission, this is an act of giving consent or authorization. Okay, so whenever we state permission, we use the following models. So we have three. So we have the can, could, and may. All right, so what are the three models that we can use under permission? Okay, so we have can, could, and may. So let us now go deeper as to how we're going to state the following models under permission. So can is said to be used whenever we ask for or give permission to someone. So in our examples, number one, can you give me your number? Does it ask or give permission? What do you think? Okay, I want to know your answer in the comment section. So can you give me your number? Okay, so obviously there is a question mark. Definitely it asks for something. The person or the speaker is asking for the number of the person he or she is talking to. Okay, and number two, can you help me with this? So obviously that is also asking for something. Okay, asking for what? Definitely asking for help. And lastly, I can do it if you want me to. It obviously give permission to someone if he can do the honor on the behalf of someone. All right, so that's how we can make use of can under permission. Understood? So next, okay, we have could. So that is good. It's not read as cold because there are some of you who read it as cold. Well, we read it as could. So we use it, it says here that we use it as more polite and more formal model in asking permission, but which may not be given. What does it mean? There is no probability or that the um, the model could, or should I say, there is no 100% that that you will be granted with your request or with the thing that you're asking for. So it's 50-50. There, it is possible to happen or not. Okay, so just like the example that we have, I could possibly ask my mom to cook it for us. So we made use of the word could. There's no, there's a possibility that her mom will cook for them or not. So there is no assurance or 100% assurance that her mom will cook for them. So that's why they use could. All right. Likewise, on our second example, could I interview the mayor? So yes, there's actually a possibility that they will be allowed to be allowed to have an interview with him or not, maybe because the mayor is busy with some of his engagement as a public servant. Okay, please bear with the noise that you've been hearing on my end. Okay, so next is, could you lend me your book? All right, so you're here, the speaker is asking for someone if they could lend him a book, okay, or not. So there is actually a possibility. So whenever we use possible, the word possible, it means there is no 100% assurance that the action will take place. But if we made use of the word probable or probability, okay, that is there is 100% assurance that the action will happen. All right. So apart from that, okay, so the last model that we have to know under permission is, so may. Okay, it says here that may is the most polite and formal model that we can use whenever we ask or give permission to someone. So just like the following examples we have here. So medical practitioners affected by COVID may now claim, okay, their financial support from the government. Does it ask or give permission? Well, it obviously gives permission to our medical practitioners to claim their financial support from the government. All right, and number two, example, teachers may now distribute the modules to the learners or to their learners. Does it ask or give permission? What do you think? All right, it obviously gives permission to our dear teachers that they are now being allowed to distribute their modules to their learners. And today is our distribution of models. And I hope your parents are being informed that today is our distribution of modules. And I hope all of you will get your module so that you have a copy and be guided of our activities for this school year in English. And lastly, Number 3, may I borrow your books, please? All right. So obviously it asked for something, and that is to borrow the book. So right. So now let us now move on to prohibition. So it says here that prohibition is the act of disallowing or prohibiting someone in performing or doing something. So the models that shows prohibition includes the following. Okay, we have the can't. It is the contracted word for cannot. And we also have must not or mustn't. Okay, so as you can see, there is the word not. There is negation because you are being prohibited. You are prevented in doing something. All right, that's why we cannot omit the word not to our models. Okay, whenever we express prohibition, the word not is is always attached to our models in order for us to express that the models being used in our statement really prohibits someone in performing or doing something. So let's get to know some examples under the following models that we have. So here, can't is used in dealing with something against the rules, laws, and signs. Okay, so you are against. It means you are not in favor of the rules, the laws, and signs that you are seeing around you. But when do we use it? We use it when the speaker is not the one who sets the rule. Let's say you are just an ordinary Filipino. Okay, so you can make use of can't. Okay, let's say you are not the one who set the rules. You cannot make use of can't. But if you are just an ordinary people who is being asked by the government to follow the rules, laws, and signs, and yet you do not, or you are not in favor to it or against to it, then you can make use of can't. Okay, whenever you express, if you want to express your feelings against the rules and laws and signs that bound you. Okay, just like the following examples here. You can't go out during the community quarantine. Okay, so it's a quarantine policy that you go against. Okay, you can't go out during the community quarantine. Okay, number 2, the company can't apply for motion for reconsideration, and it has something to do with the legal proceeding. Okay, and number 3, you can't buy any alcoholic beverages due to liquor ban. So it has something to do with the liquor ban policy that is being implemented amidst the COVID restrictions that we are having. All right. So as you can see, okay, the speaker is not the one who sets the rule here from the following examples that we have. That's why in our statement, we made use of the model under prohibition can't. Understood? All right. What about if the speaker is the one who sets the rule? Okay, what model under prohibition we are going to use? All right. So there are only two, of course. Two, of course, that is not or mustn't, whereas it is used in dealing with something that is not permitted. So in this context, it is the speaker who sets the rule. Okay, just like the following example here, you must not turn off your camera during online class. Okay, it's a conversation between a teacher and his or her students, whereas our speaker here is our teachers, whereas he or she is the one who sets the rule. Therefore, in stating prohibition, we have to make use of must not or mustn't. Okay, that's why in our sentence, as you can see, it says there that you must not turn off your camera during an online class. Likewise, in the second example, so mustn't you eat the fruits inside the fridge? It's a conversation between a mother to a child. So let's say, for example, your parent doesn't allow you, for example, to eat any fruits or any fruit without her permission, then you really have to follow. So she is the speaker in our sentence. She's the one who sets the rule. Therefore, the prohibition model that we will use is must not or mustn't. So last, okay, Salome must not tell my secrets to her friend. So it's a conversation between a boss to a colleague. So the examples are more likely the same to the examples that we've had, okay, just a while ago. All right, so now let's move on. So if you have any question as to how we're going to make use of the two models under prohibition, please let me know in the comment section, and then I'll try to answer all of those. Or if you want, you can also raise your questions in our GC so that we can answer it right away. Understood? And lastly is obligation. So like what I've said, it is more likely synonymous to your responsibility. So it expresses commitment or your duty as an individual. So the models that we can use in expressing obligation include have to or has to and must. Okay, I will repeat. Have to or has to and must. When do we use have? Okay, if we're referring to many. When do we use has? If we're just referring to singularity of our subject. Okay, and must. Okay, which implies of your obligation. Okay, when we say must, you are really obliged to do it. Okay, you are reinforced to perform it. Understood? So that is what must expresses whenever we use it in our sentence. Okay, so in our example, let us focus first with has or have to. So when do we use it? So it says here that it is used when obligation comes not from the speaker, okay? The obligation is set by an authority, okay? Rule or law. I will repeat, okay? We use has or have to, okay, when obligation comes not from the speaker, okay? So the obligation is set by an authority, rule, or law. So what are the authority or rule or law that we have? The Constitution, okay? It is an example of law. What about rule? Let's say, for example, at school, we have rules and regulation. Likewise, also in our classroom, there are a set of rules that we need to follow. Okay, well, while engaging in an online class or whatsoever. So in our examples here, I have to be in the airport before the flight departure. Okay, I have to be in the airport before the flight departure. So obviously, why does she need to be in the airport? Okay, why? It is very clear that there's an obligation being set by the authority. So who is the authority in our sentence in here? Of course, the airport itself has this rule that he or she has to follow. Okay, that's why we made use of have to in our statement in order for us to express obligation over the matter. Understood? Next, she has to submit her report on time. Why is it important for her to submit the report on time? Because there's a set rule, okay, from his or her teacher that they need to submit it on the schedule being given by their teacher. Okay, so the obligation comes not from the speaker. Okay, when we say speaker, the one who is speaking. Okay, okay, and lastly, the company has to pay retrenchment benefits to its employees. Okay, why is there a need for them to pay the retrenchment benefits of their employees? Because it is under the law, okay, or rule that they have signed in their contract as a company employee agreement. All right, understood? The obligation is set by an authority, rule, or law that needs to be followed. Understood? Okay, that is how we use has to or have to in our sentence under obligation. Okay, always bear that in your mind. So next is must. All right. So must is used when expressing obligation, okay, coming from the speaker or from an authority. Okay, just like our examples here, I think there's no need to elaborate it further, but let us get to know it more. So I must call my husband now. Okay, so as you can see, the speaker here is the wife herself. Yes, it is an obligation of her to call her husband. All right, it's her responsibility because she needs to know the condition or the status of her husband. Okay, if he is in good condition or not, or safe, or whatever it is. Next is we must finish the report on time. Okay, so the obligation comes from the speaker, or I would say it is an authority, perhaps the leader in their group. They have to finish it because, or else they might get a low grade from their class. And lastly, I may stay away from them. Okay, so I would say that it is all about the speaker's decision that he wants to stay away from them, maybe because they are bad influence. Okay, so these are this model must, okay, can be used, all right, in expressing our obligation. Okay, let's say for example we are the speaker or we are the authority in our group, then we can make use of must, okay, to express obligation in our statement. Understood? All right, so so we still have here, what about if there's no obligation? Okay, no obligation expresses Of course, the absence of commitment or duty, as one may do it or not. Okay, so what models we are going to use if there's no obligation, there is no commitment at all on something, okay? Or maybe you can do it or not, whether you like it or not. Okay, so the model that we can use here is don't or doesn't have to. Okay, don't have to or doesn't have to is used to express no obligation. If you think you have no obligation on something, then you can make use of don't have to or doesn't have to. So what are the examples that we can make use for us to express that we have no commitment on that, or we don't have obligation on something that is being thrown to us? Okay, or we are trying to make a statement over the others. So just like the examples we have, number one, she doesn't have to attend a funeral if she is not feeling well. So definitely, if you are not obliged to go there, if you think you are sick, you might collapse once you get there, knowing that you're not in good condition. All right, so there's a possibility also that she can go or not, unless she belongs to the family or immediate family. If you're not, then better not go. Okay, next is you don't have to come to my office in person. You may submit it online, just like us. If you think you cannot submit it physically in our respective kiosks, then you can submit it via messenger. Okay, in that way you can submit all your quizzes, assignments, and projects efficiently and effectively. So you are not being obliged actually to submit all your outputs physically, because we are trying to avoid you. Okay, we are preventing you from getting infected with the virus. That's why it's more important that if it's possible on your end to submit it via online, then better. If you can't, then let your parents go to school, then submit all your outputs. All right, so there are so many options that we can actually take. Okay, we are not obliging you actually to be physically present in submitting your outputs. If it's possible for you to submit it online, then better. We will accept it wholeheartedly. Okay, and last, the employees don't have to come this morning, as the activity will start in the afternoon. Okay, yes, of course. If maybe the person is very excited, that's why he wants to be there early. But if the activity is in the afternoon, then it would be better. Anyway, you are not obliged to go there early. Okay, better, it's still a choice. Then better go there before, let's say, for example, 30 minutes before the activity. Okay, so that's it. All right, so if you still have any questions under no obligations, then just please let me know. Okay, the models that you have to bear in your mind under no obligations is that you're going to make use of doesn't have to or don't have to. But when do we use doesn't have to? We use doesn't have to if our subject is in singular, okay, in singular form, while don't is being used if our subject is in plural form. Understood? All right. If you have any question in our lesson for today, I want you to comment it in the comment section so that I may know, and I would be able to give you clarifications and further examples to it so that you can fully understand our lesson. So without any further ado, let us now move on to our learning task. So all your outputs or your learning task will be done asynchronously. So what are those? So under introduction phase, you will be working uh, on learning task number 1. It is on page 6. So what you're going to do is that you're going to imagine that you are in your new school. So there's a map. Okay, you are going to match the signage below with their corresponding meaning. So write your answer in your notebook or on a piece of sheet of paper. So that's how it is. And next, under development phase, you will be working with 2 learning tasks. And those are learning task number 2 and 4. You can find them on pages 7 and 10. So in learning task number 2, you are going to choose the model that best completes each statement. You're just going to write the letters of your answers in your notebook. Understood? Or on a piece of paper that you have. And on learning task number 4, you're going to copy and complete in your notebook the dialogue by supplying phrases or models plus verbs expressing permission, obligation, or prohibition, whichever is necessary. Okay, you're just going to supply, okay, the supply phrases and modal verbs, okay, that expresses permission, obligation, or prohibition. You're just going to choose among the dialogues therein. And under engagement phase, you will be working with learning task number 5 on page 11. So there is an infographic from the World Health Organization. You're going to convert it into a dialogue between 2 members of a family using phrases or models. Okay, plus the verbs expressing permission, obligation, or prohibition. You just have to be creative. You're going to use the infographic itself, then you're going to create a dialogue out of it. And lastly, under assimilation phase, okay, you are going to write your own or draw your own comic strip. So it will serve as for your performance task. So for our rubric, the content is 40%. The accuracy of model being used is 30%. And for your creativity, okay, let's say, for example, you draw or you cut out pictures. All right, so that is 20%. And of course, much important, your work must be neat. Okay, so it has 10% with a total of 100%. So I am expecting for your comic strip, for it will serve as for your performance task. All right. And lastly, I need your reflection paper. So you're just going to complete the following statement here under. So number 1, I have learned that models are. You are going to complete the sentence. You're going to write the things that you have learned in my subject, on our topic. And we use models for what? Okay, you write it there. And models are important because blah, blah, blah. All right. So if you have questions about our a learning task, then better let me know in the comment section, or you can message me via Messenger. So if there is no more question, no more clarifications, then I think we need to call this a day. So thank you so much for listening to my lesson for this morning. Okay, thank you and God bless.